Alright, so superhero shows, they're everywhere these days. Some are straight up awesome, others not so much. But there are a handful that really stand out, the ones that get us hooked and keep us coming back for more. So today, I'm breaking down our top 10 superhero TV shows. Whether you're into heroes, villains, or somewhere in between, this list has you covered. Let's jump in and see which shows made the cut. At 10 we have The Flash. The Flash is the heart of the Arrowverse and one of the most enduring superhero shows out there. It follows Barry Allen, a forensic scientist who gains super speed after a freak accident. But what really makes this show shine isn't just the cool powers or the speedster action. It's the tight-knit team Barry builds around himself. You've got Cisco, the tech genius, Caitlin, the compassionate doctor with a secret alter ego, and Joe, the father figure keeping the group grounded. Their chemistry adds real emotional weight, turning The Flash into more than just a superhero show. It's about friendship, family, and the struggles of balancing a double life. The villains are just as compelling, with big bads like Reverse Flash and Zoom pushing Barry to his limits. Sure, the show had its ups and downs, especially in the middle seasons, but the character dynamics and emotional moments keep it grounded. Plus, it's a big part of the whole Arrowverse, which has been a major influence on superhero TV over the last decade. If you want classic superhero vibes with a dose of humor and plenty of fast-paced action, The Flash is a solid way to kick off this list. At 9, it's The Umbrella Academy. The Umbrella Academy isn't your typical superhero show. It's a wild mix of dysfunctional family drama, time travel chaos, and offbeat humor, all wrapped up in a stylish, dark package. The story revolves around 7 adopted siblings, each with their own weird superpowers and even weirder personalities. You've got Luther, the muscle-bound leader with a chip on his shoulder, Klaus, who can talk to the dead but struggles with addiction, Vanya, the quiet one hiding a dangerous secret, and Five, a time-traveling teenager stuck in an adult's body, constantly trying to stop an apocalypse that only they believe is coming. The real magic of the show is how these characters clash and bond. They're often at each other's throats, but you feel their complicated family ties underneath all the sarcasm and chaos. The time jumps and unpredictable plot twists keep things fresh, while the dark, almost gothic vibe sets it apart from the usual bright, shiny superhero fare. If you want a superhero show that's less about perfect heroes and more about flawed people trying to fix the world, often screwing it up along the way, The Umbrella Academy is definitely one to check out. At number 8, we have Gotham. Gotham dives deep into the gritty origins of Batman's city before the Dark Knight ever put on a cape. Centered around young Detective James Gordon, the show explores how Gotham became the crime-ridden, chaotic place we know from the comics. What really makes Gotham compelling is the complex web of characters. From a young Bruce Wayne trying to find his path, to iconic villains like Penguin, Riddler, and Catwoman evolving from fledgling criminals to the legendary foes Batman will face. The show masterfully builds these relationships, showing how alliances shift and dark obsessions grow. James Gordon acts as the moral compass in a city spiraling into madness, but even he's not immune to Gotham's corrupting influence. His evolving dynamic with Bruce Wayne, from a protective figure to a distant ally, adds emotional weight. Rather than just laying the groundwork for Batman, Gotham stands on its own as a dark, unpredictable ride through one of the most iconic cities in comic book history, full of ambition, tragedy, and slow-burning chaos. At 7, it's Arrow. Arrow is the show that kick-started the entire Arrowverse and proved that gritty, grounded superhero storytelling could thrive on TV. It follows Oliver Queen, a billionaire playboy turned hooded vigilante, who returns to Starling City after 5 years of being presumed dead. But he's not the same man. He's now got a bow and a mission. What really makes Arrow stand out isn't just the action, it's the evolution of Oliver as a character. His transformation from a ruthless killer into a true hero is gradual, painful, and full of setbacks. The show shines through its ensemble cast. Diggle becomes Oliver's moral compass. Felicity brings both heart and tech skills, and a lot of fan-favorite moments. And characters like Thea and Laurel bring layered emotional arcs and intense conflict. The relationships within Team Arrow are just as compelling as the vigilante action. And let's not forget the flashbacks. While sometimes hit or miss, They added a second timeline that deepened Oliver's backstory and often paralleled his current struggles. Arrow laid the groundwork for what superhero shows on TV could look like. Dark, emotional, and full of moral complexity. It set the tone for the whole Arrowverse and gave us a grounded, raw look at what it really means to try and save a city. At 6, we have Loki. Loki's always been one of the most interesting characters in the MCU. Not just because he's funny or slick, but because he's constantly torn between being a villain, an anti-hero, and something in between. The show picks up after Endgame, and instead of fading out of existence, he ends up in this place called the TVA, basically a bunch of time cops who tell him his entire life is a mistake. From there, the show gets wild. You've got alternate timelines, broken realities, and versions of Loki you'd never expect. But at the core of all that chaos is something kind of personal. Loki figuring out who he actually is when he's not trying to live up to some label, whether it's God of Mischief or Thor's screw-up brother. His back and forth with Mobius is one of the best parts. It's not just comedy. There's this weird trust that builds between them. And then Sylvie shows up, a variant of Loki who challenges everything he thinks about identity and free will. Visually, it's one of the coolest shows Marvel's done. It's got style, it's got substance, and it's probably the boldest thing the MCU's done on TV. At number 5, it's Peacemaker. Peacemaker took everyone by surprise. I mean, let's be real. After the Suicide Squad, most people probably didn't expect a whole show about this guy to work, let alone be one of the best superhero shows out there. The show picks up right after the Suicide Squad, with Peacemaker recovering and being roped into a new Black Ops mission with an offbeat team of misfits. And yeah, it's got all the wild stuff you'd expect. Over-the-top action, ridiculous banter, and some totally unfiltered moments. But beneath all the jokes and chaos, it's actually kind of emotional. Peacemaker, played by John Cena, is this guy who's been raised to believe that peace is worth killing for, but the show dives into why he's like that. His messed up relationship with his dad, his need for validation, and how deep down he knows he's kind of broken. It's raw, it's funny, it's violent, but it also manages to sneak in a lot of character growth and surprisingly thoughtful moments. Peacemaker's not your typical superhero series, and that's exactly why it stands out. At 4, it's Smallville. Before the Arrowverse, before the MCU exploded on Disney+, there was Smallville, a show that redefined superhero television in the early 2000s. Airing for 10 seasons, it told the origin story of Clark Kent before he ever donned the cape, exploring his journey from a small-town Kansas farm boy to the symbol of hope we all know as Superman. What really made Smallville stand out was its long-form, character-driven storytelling. Clark isn't just learning to control his powers, he's learning how to be human. His relationships with characters like Lex Luthor and Lana Lang add depth and complexity. The Clark-Lex dynamic in particular is one of the show's strongest. Watching their friendship slowly fracture and evolve into an iconic rivalry was genuinely compelling. The show also weaved in a larger mythology, slowly building the Superman world piece by piece. From Kryptonian lore and villains like Zod, to early appearances from Justice League. It wasn't always perfect, but it was ambitious as hell, and it walked so shows like Arrow and The Flash could run. If you're into superhero origin stories with a lot of heart, teen drama, and epic build-up, Smallville is still one to watch. Number 3 is Watchmen. When HBO announced a follow-up series to Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons' legendary graphic novel, a lot of people were skeptical. But Watchmen didn't just live up to the original, it carved out its own legacy. Rather than rehashing the same story, the show is a bold continuation set decades later, tackling modern themes through a superhero lens that feels raw, real, and unapologetically political. At the center is Angela Abar, aka Sister Knight, a masked cop trying to unravel a conspiracy that ties back to the events of the original Watchmen. The show dives deep into America's history of racial injustice, and it uses its superhero world to explore identity, legacy, and power in a way that's both intellectual and emotionally gripping. The character dynamics are sharp and layered. From Angela's relationship with her grandfather Will Reeves to the return of Dr. Manhattan in a way that completely reframes what godlike power means. There's also Ozymandias off in his own bizarre, brilliant storyline that slowly clicks into place. It's not your typical superhero show, and that's what makes it so powerful. Watchmen takes big risks with its storytelling, visuals, and themes, and pulls it off with confidence. Whether you're a fan of the original or not, this is superhero TV at its most daring and thought-provoking. At 2, it's Daredevil. Netflix's Daredevil dives deep into the gritty, street-level side of the Marvel Universe, following Matt Murdock, a blind lawyer by day and fierce vigilante by night. What sets this show apart is how it blends raw action with intense character drama. Matt's struggle to balance his moral code, his legal career. What really drives the show are the relationships Matt builds. Especially with Foggy Nelson, his loyal and often lighthearted best friend who keeps him grounded, and Karen Page, whose own journey from assistant to fierce ally adds emotional depth. On the flip side, the villains like Wilson Fisk aren't just obstacles. They have layers and motivations that make every confrontation feel intense and personal, raising the stakes far beyond typical good versus evil. The show's gritty, street-level setting makes every episode pulse with energy and realism. Daredevil doesn't rely on flashy superpowers. Instead, it's all about raw skill, determination, and the moral struggles Matt faces as both a lawyer and vigilante. If you're into superhero stories with depth, strong character work, and plenty of suspense, Daredevil is definitely one to binge. And topping the list is The Boys, that if you're looking for a superhero show that completely flips the script, The Boys is where it's at. This series dives deep into the darker, grittier side of what happens when superheroes aren't so heroic. Set in a world where supes are celebrities often abusing their powers, The Boys follows a ragtag group of vigilantes determined to expose their corruption and take them down, no matter the cost. The show is brutal, raw, and unapologetically satirical, blending dark humor with sharp social commentary. The characters are complex and flawed, from the cynical Billy Butcher leading the charge, to Huey trying to navigate a world that's lost all sense of morality, and of course, the terrifyingly powerful but deeply broken Homelander. The dynamic between these characters is electric, constantly shifting between uneasy alliances and intense conflicts. What really sets The Boys apart is how it uses superhero tropes to comment on fame, corporate greed, and power abuse, making it as thought-provoking as it is entertaining. It's violent, it's twisted, but it's also smart and addictive, a fresh, brutal take on the superhero genre that earned its spot at the top of the list. And that's a wrap on our top 10 superhero TV shows. Did your favorite make the cut? Or is there a show you think we missed? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We love hearing your opinions. If you like this video, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.